Should evangelicals be banned from evangelizing Indigenous peoples? Nope. And here's why. I'm Ross Burns. This is the Burns Eye View. Let's go. First, you're probably wondering why there's now a bookcase in my background. Well, I was recently made aware of a made-up Pew Research study that said all important YouTube videos have bookshelves in their background. So I figured, why not give it a try and see if I become more important? So recently there's been a considerable amount of controversy over the question, should evangelicals be allowed or banned from evangelizing Indigenous peoples? YouTuber Godless Engineer actually recently created a petition advocating for people to sign it saying, yes, I want evangelicals banned from evangelizing Indigenous peoples. He and I actually had a very friendly and respectful and civil debate on the subject on his channel, which I'll link to in the thing below. But as you can probably tell, I think a proposed ban of that nature is a bad, no good, really dumb, awful idea. And here's 4 reasons why. So the first reason why a ban on evangelism is a terrible idea is because who's going to do it? I think it would obviously be a terrible idea to give the power of what speech is and isn't allowed over to some kind of international organization like the UN. Awful idea. So if we're going to say that each individual country should say what kind of speech is and isn't allowed, whether that speech is a little too religious or not, well, I'm going to say that government might have overstepped its bounds. No government should restrict the religious freedom of anyone to proselytize anyone. We should be free to advocate for what we think the best idea out there is. Now, my skeptic friends might be out there saying, no, we're talking about people forcing their beliefs on others. Rawr. Now, while you're right, that has happened in the past. People have forced their beliefs on others through the power of the sword or the pen, much like a ban is trying to do. No modern missionary organization within evangelicalism has any interest in forcing our beliefs on someone else. A good example I might use is if tomorrow morning 2 lovely Jehovah's Witnesses knock on my door and they want to tell me about the wonders of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, if I were to tell them, no thanks, and they were to knock me down and charge into my house and set up shop in my kitchen, I'm calling the cops. So no one is talking about forced entry or harassment or trespassing or defacing of cultural property. Governments can and should protect people's right to their own estate. Secondly, all culturally held beliefs, value sets, and worldviews are not equal. Some worldviews are better than other worldviews. To some viewers, this is an obvious, self-evident truth. And to others, my lovely nails just drag themselves across a chalkboard. Lovely nails? But actually, I'd argue that you agree with me. Are we really going to say that a culture that does not value women is as good as a culture that does value women? What about a culture that prizes the scientific method as an epistemological tool versus superstition and tradition? If you had the power to go to another nation or another tribe or people group and teach them the value of women, or perhaps the value of the scientific method to be able to improve their lives, wouldn't you do it? If you believe in objective truth that ultimate reality is knowable by human beings, then it necessarily follows that someone's worldview can be more correct than another. Now, thirdly, a ban on proselytization is self-refuting. Now, what do I mean by self-refutation? Consider the statement that all general statements are false. So a statement like, all Italians talk with their hands like this, is false, because all general statements are false. Let's consider another statement. All general statements are false. Is that a general statement? Must be false. But that's what a self-refuting statement is. Now, a ban on proselytization implies that no one should seek to change the mind of another. So I guess that means no one should try and convince a person that they should be a Mormon or a vegan. What about if someone thinks that they should be a missionary? Should we try and convince them to change their mind? Furthermore, what if someone believes that you should go and change people's minds about things? Should we try and change their mind too? A person who is trying very hard to convince people to stop trying to convince people is a person who's very confusing. Now perhaps you're there thinking, well, there's nothing wrong with proselytization in general, okay. It's specifically of indigenous peoples where it gets into dicey territory. So far, I have not heard any logical explanation of why proselytizing someone in the first world is different than proselytizing someone in the third world. Every explanation I've been given, like, oh well, they don't have internet access, it just seems like a bad ad hoc explanation. If there is objective truth, don't you want everybody to know objective truth? And finally, I'd like to give a specific example of when evangelism of an indigenous tribe really did work. My favorite example is the missionary work of the Richardson family in the 1960s and following of the Sawi people of Western New Guinea. For a vast amount of generations, the Sawi people were not the kind of people you'd bring home to meet your parents. One of their prized virtues was actually the ability to deceive one's enemy, to be treacherous. They thought that Judas was actually the hero of the gospel. They were a head-hunting, cannibalistic war tribe, constantly at war with the sub-factions within themselves. They were riddled with hepatitis and malaria and high infant mortality and had no way of themselves to combat these things. Now the Richardson family, which was a missionary family from Canada, they gave them access to medicine. They saved thousands of lives in the years that they were there. After helping them understand what the New Testament had to teach, they finally got it and almost universally became a Christian people. Now today they're a thriving people group. They actually were made aware that they're Indonesian citizens. Some of them work for the Indonesian government. And now here's the big point. They're still the Sawi people. Their culture has not been destroyed. It's been transformed. The Richardson family, like all modern evangelical missionaries, aren't seeking to make Western, Republican, capitalist Christians. There are many aspects of traditional cultures that are far better than Western individualistic, materialistic culture. The way that they treat their elders, they don't just lock them up in a home and forget about them. Rather, they kept the good parts of their culture there. The Sawi people run their own churches. They don't answer to any higher authorities. They are the elders and pastors there. They're the ones who are teaching the scriptures. They have peace within their tribal groups, a feat that many people thought was impossible. And finally, if you believe that, as the Bible teaches, that all people apart from Christ, all people outside of Christ, are lost, that they will rightly and justly spend an eternity apart from God because of their own sin and their rejection and disregard of God, then your desire ought to be to go out there and try and convince people. Try and convince people to follow Jesus, to repent of their sins, and to trust in him as their sin-bearing sacrifice. Or as the Sawi people might put it, their peace child. I am not myself a missionary, but I have many missionary friends who are the most wonderful, kind, just delightful people who really have given their entire lives to this pursuit. Not for their own glory or to get more notches in their belt, saying like, oh, look how many people I saved, but out of genuine concern for the people that they're trying to reach. I'm going to leave in the links below some terrific missionary organizations out there who are doing just phenomenal work trying to reach unreached people groups. If you would, prayerfully consider becoming financial partners with them. They can't do it without resources from people like me and from people like you. So thanks so much for watching. I have a debate in early March on this subject, should Christians be banned from evangelizing indigenous peoples. It should be up in sometime in March. I'll leave the link in the description when that thing happens. Please like this video and subscribe. It helps me out so much. And leave your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, I'm Ross Burns. This was the Burns Eye View. Hope you have a great day.